Hey, welcome back everybody. This is Matthew with Barefoot Bonsai, another episode. Today we are in the backyard again and we are going to be talking about Adenium obesum, which is one of my favorite plants to grow as bonsai. So over here to your right and my left, I do have two specimens here that I have been growing. This one I've had for several years, I think probably 5 to 6 years. I've been growing this specimen in Northeast Florida. I'll turn it so you can get a couple angles here of it. If we get a little close-up of the side, you'll see that we have a little section in here. It's kind of hollowed out and missing. This actually took some frost damage last year. We had a really cold night where we had sub-freezing weather, got down into the mid-20s. I did protect this plant. I did cover it and protect it on a covered patio. However, the winds were so high that the frost cloth was blown off, and this is one of the plants that was exposed. However, this plant is so tough, even with some damage and losing a significant portion of its trunk and some of its lower portions here down toward the roots, it still was able to pull through and I was able to salvage it. And actually, now that it has made it through, I think it adds a little bit of character to it as well. The one over here is a recent addition, and if you look very closely, you'll see that we have a dark area here, which is kind of a green, like an olive green, and we have some lighter areas here. I have just exposed about 3 inches here, 3+ inches I've just exposed to the air, so over time this will darken up as well. But I wanted to add to the look of the strong, thick, swollen base here, which is known as a caudex. So if you've watched some of my videos, you'll know that I'm interested in plants that make these thick, swollen trunks, and the Adenium is certainly one of them that does that. Now, this is not your typical bonsai as far as what a lot of people think of. So a lot of people think of junipers, Japanese maples, different types of hardwood trees as bonsai. But I really like working with some of these succulent type plants. I think they're interesting and they're easy to work with. Also, being at the garden center, I like to introduce beginners to these trees because they are more forgiving. They can go long periods of time without water, and so long as they're covered and protected from hard frost, they're relatively easy to grow. And then of course you have the showy flowers. These flowers will bloom and persist throughout the warm season. So if it stays warm all year round, technically these can bloom almost all year round. They're really impressive, really showy flowers, and just an attractive plant all around. So whether you're into bonsai or not, the Adenium is a really fantastic plant. And if you live in an area of the country where it gets cold, they could be a little bit more difficult to keep happy without giving them special situations indoors while you're protecting them. Maybe some artificial ultraviolet light, a grow lamp or something like that you could do to protect them. But generally somewhere near zone 9 where we are here in Northeast Florida, generally we only have a few cold nights a year, so it's easy just to bring them in their containers and keep them protected from the coldest nights that we have. So a week or so ago, I planted some seeds. So I want to show you what the seed pods and the seeds look like, as well as these seedlings here. So you can see even when they're young, look how fat and plump the stems are on those little seedlings. So they, coming right out of the seed, already have a nice little fat trunk. It's kind of cool. So we're going to put a picture right here of what a seed pod looks like on the plant. But this is what it looks like after it's come off the plant and the seeds are literally exploding out of this seed pod. There goes one. I'm not going to be able to hold on to all these, but inside of here are these long strands, and they're all bunched in there really tightly, and if you pull them out, which comes out really easy, then you will pull these out and separate the seeds from these little fine hairs. So the little fine hairs are used by the plant to move these seeds away from the parent plant, because it wouldn't be conducive to their survival if all the seeds just drop down below the parent plant. So it's best if these seeds are dispersed far away from the plant. So much like a dandelion seed, these little hairs help the plant, the seed, get away from the parent plant and move on somewhere else. This is a survival mechanism for the plant. So let me pull one out that's already dried here. So here I have a bunch that are dried. Let me pull one out so y'all can see it. Nice one. So the seed is sandwiched between two tufts of hair. I mean, it's a lot like hair. So the seed is right there in the center, and you simply pull one end off and another end off. And this is what you plant right here, this little guy, and just below the surface of the soil. Now, I have watched several YouTube videos, and I have seen several ways that people recommend planting these. One of the methods I saw was with sand. Now, I was tempted to try in sand, but I already had some potting soil. So if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I prefer the Fox Farm brand soil. So I thought I'd just use what I have and see how I do. And it looks like there is a couple, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that did not emerge. So out of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so about 20. So about a fifth or so did not germinate. I think that's pretty good for my first try. I will try them in different blends, maybe in sand and another time. But I think this germination rate, I'm satisfied with it for my purposes as a hobbyist. I have plenty of new material to work with, and actually I have probably about 4 times this many planted up on the other side of the backyard here. But this is just an example of my first attempt at growing Adenium obesum. So the germination rate is good. I'm going to keep these on the dry side from here on out. So I kept them somewhat moist after I first planted them. So I set the seeds in just below the surface. I moistened the soil, and then I kept the soil somewhat moist until they started germinating. Once they start germinating and they begin growing more and more roots, I'm going to allow them to dry out very thoroughly in between waterings. Now, I do keep these with an overhead. I have a way to keep these dry from the rain. I have a hangover at the back of the roof that hangs over the patio, and so I'm able to keep these from the rain, and then I can control the water. So when it comes to succulents, most succulents, the key to keeping them happy is being able to control the moisture. If you live here in the southeast, where we have a lot of heavy rainfalls in the summertime, afternoon thunderstorms, it can be difficult to control the moisture. If you have an overhang off the side of the house, something that can protect them, a screened patio with a roof, something like that, or just be able to bring them in when it rains, which is difficult to do if you're not home all the time. Succulents can be difficult otherwise because they don't like to stay wet, and sometimes in our climate we have so much moisture that the roots can rot. So I'm going to be able to control the moisture on these. I have plenty of space to keep them from getting wet during the rains, which will make them growing and flourishing. It's going to make it a lot easier for me to keep these little guys happy. So I'm really excited that we had a really good germination rate. I will keep you posted as these grow. It's going to be really exciting, and as they begin to mature, I will begin training them for bonsai, and we'll be bringing some to the garden center to sell there as well. So keep tuned in to this series, and I'll keep you posted on how these little guys develop. Another thing I wanted to share with you all, and you have seen in some of the previous videos, I have a large collection of the portulacaria afra, and so I am beginning something new. I'm going to be naming all my bonsai. So it's beginning, I have so many of them, it's hard sometimes to distinguish one from the other. So this is just one more little thing that I can do to distinguish each one from the other individuals that have my collection. So I am going to be, this is the first one that I have given a name. And this is also the only one that I'm going to give both a first name and a last name to. And the only reason why I'm giving a last name is because this first one I'm naming after a certain character that was in a TV series several years ago. So I'm going to introduce my first named bonsai, and it is Hiro Nakamura. Hiro Nakamura. Some of you may know who that is if you're a fan of that television series. It is no longer on the air, although probably in reruns, but you can simply Google that and you'll find out which television show that was from. But he was one of my favorite characters in that show. So my very first bonsai that I'm giving a name to is for Hiro of that television series. Now, if any of you have ideas, I'm going strictly Japanese names, just a first name. If you have any ideas, you can put that in the comment section of this series. I would love to get some ideas. I have been going online and looking up different Japanese names and trying to get the meanings of the names. So I want each of these bonsai to have a distinct and meaningful name. So I could use some help because I have a large collection, and anyone who has a great idea for a classic Japanese name, please let me know. All right, so we had a hurricane go by the west coast of the state. We are very fortunate here in Northeast Florida that we only experienced some high winds and gusts. However, it's a very small pot, very tall plant, and it tipped over. I came home and this was all over the backyard. So I'm going to repot it. So I'm going to put some more soil in, but this is the Jatropha multifida, and we have talked about this in previous episodes. If you missed those episodes, check those out. They are on our channel at Earthworks Jacksonville. So this Jatropha here is a little bit different. Its natural form is long and leggy. I had talked in an earlier video that I'm going to be cutting this back for bonsai, but I need to keep this thing stable. So I have got to get some more soil in here. I'm holding it here because if I don't hold it, it's going to probably, it's going to want to tip over. So I'm going to hold this together for a few moments until I can get some soil in here, and then just pack it in gently around the edges just to kind of wedge the plant in place. So it is kind of a precarious situation here. We can get some footage inside. I'm just gently kind of going around the edges and wedging that soil in to help hold this thing in place. It does not want to stand up on its own for certain. And I just recently put this plant in here, so it was not, the roots had not really taken hold of the soil that it was in, so it was in precarious spot to begin with, and I put it in that spot, so it's my fault. And really I should have probably brought this in closer to the house as the high winds picked up, but I was at work and really hadn't thought about it. But this guy's going to be okay. These Jatrophas are very tough, so even though it laid out in the backyard, sprawled out with its soil spilled all over the place. I even have a scene of the crime. We might be able to get some footage of that, put some police tape around it. Let's see here. I'm really looking forward to updating you on this Jatropha later on this spring, because that's when I'm going to take some cuttings from this guy. So I have to keep him happy and healthy. And this winter, if it gets really cold, I'll have to protect it from the extreme colds as well. It's going to be a lot easier to take care of as far as the winds are concerned after I do the cuttings, so it won't be so top heavy. And if I can keep it from falling over, the roots will actually become established and it won't be as big of a deal. There we go. Beautiful plant, excellent foliage, great flowers. Forms a bit of a caudex, not as fat as the other Jatrophas in my collection that we've looked at in previous videos. And that should do it. Maybe I'll put a couple rocks on the top to kind of weigh it down. This is a small pot for how tall this plant is. But I like this size pot, actually. I like the way it looks in it. It doesn't have a lot of roots right now, so there's going to be plenty of room for it to grow new roots into. Here we go. And I'm just going to leave a little lip here on the inside, just so that when it rains or when I water it, the water will be able to stay inside the pot. And I just gently push down around the edges, almost like making a pie crust, which I don't think I've ever done, but I've seen it done. It's funny, I think of a pie crust, which I've never made. All right, voila. And then the last step, I put my plant tag back in, J, Jatropha, multifida, voila. All right, now I am going to set this time, I did learn my lesson, I'm going to set this closer to the house for a while until it gets settled in. So we'll find a nice sweet spot for it. We can show everybody where we're going to put this. I'm going to put this over here, and I got to keep it down low. And the house will act as a bit of a wind block. keep that from being so exposed out there in the open in the backyard. Here we go. Oh, we did lose a leaf here. That's all right. All right. All right, thanks for joining us once again for another episode of the Barefoot Bonsai. Got these Adenium babies to look forward to. We're going to watch them grow. I will be giving you many updates throughout the series on how these are doing, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them grow up. Also, don't forget, I would love to have your input on some name ideas for my different bonsai. So throughout the series, I'm going to be introducing you to some of the young ones that are in training. I'll be showing those, and so if you see those plants, let me know of any great ideas for names. I would love to add some names from the viewers and get some input that way. So keep us posted on ideas for that. Hey, we may even be able to come up with names for the Adenium, maybe a different type of name, maybe from a different country of origin. I don't know. You guys get creative. I would love to name all my plants. I just think it's a little bit more personal if they have their own name. So keep me posted on that. Any ideas for the series? Anything that you want to hear me talk about? Give me ideas. So Earth, Space Works, Space Jacks, Barefoot Bonsai. Until next time, see you later.